Well, before I could even choose what poem I would use, I had to decide what kind of style I was going through my poetry and motion in. And currently I've been looking at, well, while watching TV, I've seen lots of adverts with using motion graphics. So I went onto YouTube to see different tutorials about how to do it and if I was capable of doing it. So I did take a risk for this project because I'd never done motion graphics before, I'd never even tried it. So, but after looking at all these different tutorials, I really thought it was worth a shot. The main techniques that I've used is illustration, because after storyboarding, which took me ages, I realised that through motion graphics it's all about vector images. So then obviously I would do this in Illustrator, creating them all in different layers, because whatever you want to move in After Effects, which is the program that I used, all the objects that you want to use in it have to be in different layers, which was horrific, to say the least. After Effects is the main program that I used to create my motion graphics. I was able to import my files, my Illustrator files, straight into After Effects, all in different layers so I can move them, different shapes. The hardest thing to do was to actually learn After Effects, because I very rarely used it, and it took me hours and hours of tutorials to even get close. The first 14 seconds, I would say, took me about a week and a half to do alone. But then after that I sort of started to get used to the program, how it works. I was trying to move things that couldn't move. Well, I thought I couldn't move it at that stage because I hadn't the whole thing set up right, but after watching different tutorials again, I was able to work out how to fix these problems. And I will get onto these problems in a wee minute. The first part of my animation was the Jupiter planet spinning, which I created through using Illustrator first to create my very own Jupiter texture, the planet, the shape, and then I imported the file into Adobe After Effects. I then pre-composed it, called it Jupiter planet. Then all I had to do was to add, I thought it would be a lot harder than this, but it was actually quite simple. Even though my first attempt at it did take me about 5 or 6 hours. But all you had to do was hit Effect, Perspective, and then Sphere. Turn it straight into a globe. And then at this stage I didn't even know what keyframes was, which is obviously the main part of After Effects. So at the start you just select 0 on the rotation tool. You hit the keyframe, move it on to about maybe 6-7 seconds, and then change the rotation to maybe 180 degrees, and that's it, done. It's as easy as that. Well, sounds easy, but it did take me about, too long. So next on my list is my clouds from my rocket. So at the very start it didn't have a baldy note how I would do that, but after lots of thinking, lots of drawing, lots of layers, I came up with this master plan that my cloud from my rocket would be made up of circles. And how I did this was draw lots of circles, different shapes, and rescale them at the exact moment the rocket goes straight up in the sky, and Bob's your uncle, you have a flying rocket straight through the sky. Now that my red and white rocket has taken off into the sky, the next problem that I encountered was that the stars, the 3D stars that I had put in the background, were an absolute mission to render out because of the RAM in my computer. I didn't know what they looked like. I had to do render tests continually to see if it even worked. So once my rocket gets into space, I had to fade out the sky because it was a 3D background which wouldn't work with my 2D vector images. It just nearly came to a stop. It looked weird, it jumped. So then that's why I just changed the opacity gradually from 100 down to 0, and that is how I faded it out. One of my biggest problems that I came across was trying to get my clouds to work with the lightning. Well, it wasn't really the lightning, it was the actual look of the clouds. I really pictured sort of just the clouds rising up with the rocket, but it didn't, with my style, it just didn't work. So what I actually did was look into the clouds that was used in Hercules. The very nicely shaped, nearly just with circle but the flat bottom. Easily for me to animate the lightning coming out the bottom, and obviously easy to transition as well, just to come in, pop it up, make it look very natural, and it also suits my style, as I said. What I'm going to tell you about next is transitions. That was the main thing about my motion graphics. It was going to be either make or break with the transitions, because without them it's just going to look silly. I just wanted it to flow naturally in your eye, and also with the poem. So you can see now that I used, in the poem it says across a clear blue sky, so this was a perfect example of the transition that I used, was slide in the sky naturally. I also used the light blue colour for my background, which is seen nearly throughout the whole motion graphics, because I feel that it's very easy on the eye, easy to look at, and also very easy to put in the background and not take attention away from my fantastic illustrations. My pet hate with Adobe After Effects is that if you use an image, for example my earth map texture, you put it in the sphere, you get it spinning like mad, and maybe it disappeared from my desktop where it was at the start. It means it disappears from my After Effects file. This was really annoying. Maybe I've shipped my chef. And there's no word went to render it out. They handed me a lecture, and there was no wee earth spinning. So back to the drawing boards, back to Illustrator, back to drawing out another earth texture map, back to animating. But we got there in the end. Earth spinning, we're all alive, and we'll move forward. So the next part was to get my earth shaking like mad, shaking like a wild thing. And then obviously the next part is draining the earth because of the poem. But what I had to do was back to the drawing board, back to Illustrator, back to earth map, change the colours from the blue to black so I can animate it down, all different layers again, drain the whole thing down and into a cup of water. To create the cup that the earth drains into, I had to create a alpha mat, which is where you use a square, you put it over the blue square that I used for the water, and then it only appears in that location where the square is. This is probably one of the main tools, I believe, to motion graphics. Well, I'm only a beginner, but it's one of the main things that I used, and I thought that it really worked out well. Really showed what I was trying to show, and really helped me get my animation to the level that I wanted it to be. This is now the part of the poem that I believe gets a bit more serious. I didn't really know this until I got an analysis online of the poem. Did not have a clue that this poem was about the 9/11, which it really helped me with storyboarding, because at the start I didn't know what to draw for this part of the poem. I didn't know what to do, but I know it's a very touchy subject, but I feel that I portrayed this side of the poem very well, using all the skills that I learnt in the first half. Nearly the first maybe 20 seconds was nearly me teaching myself how to use After Effects, and then it probably took me the same length of time to do the last 50-60 seconds as I did to do the first 20 seconds, because that's whenever I learnt all my skills, how to use the program. In the poem it says, anything can happen, the tallest towers be overturned. So the way I looked at this was, it would be the New York skyline, because the Atlantic shore itself is in front. That's the part of the poem that I did. I had the blue in front of the towers, or in front of the skyline. which was the Atlantic shore. And then what I wanted was for all the buildings to rise up separately. But firstly, I forgot again to put them all in different layers in Illustrator, so away we go back again. But then after that, it turned out, it was probably my favourite part of my whole motion graphics, was whenever they raised up separately, perfectly with the sound and with the voiceover for my poem.
The Atlantic shore itself, anything can happen. The tallest towers be overturned.
So next, those in high places daunted, those overlooked regarded, is the next line in the poem. But I felt, and even in the analysis it said, that this is talking about the US government whenever the 9/11 came down. I didn't know what way to show this in my animation through motion graphics, because I wanted my whole thing to be obviously vectored images, shapes, nice block shapes. So what I did instead was have the American flag waving at the top of the tower. This was quite difficult to do, because went back into coding where I was able to set it up so that the flag would continually loop. All I would have to do is set up the first, maybe, I think it was the first 6 keyframes of the flag moving from different positions, and then put a code in for it to continually loop, which I feel worked very well. The only downside I feel is that whenever the flag moves, it slightly comes off the pole, but that's me probably just being a bit picky after looking at it for so long. Thank you YouTube for the nice wee code, which prevented me from having to sit up and enter about another maybe 20 keyframes. Strapped Big Fortune is the next part with talking about the bird. This was where I went and drew out my own bird with the wings obviously separate in a different layer again, so I could get them moving. The loop code actually came in handy again, because it also stopped me from having to spend extra time making the bird fly across 2 screens. This, well, at the very start, this is the sort of things I've been learning, which I'm really happy with. I didn't think I would actually become quite good at After Effects, and before I wouldn't even have looked at it, wouldn't even go near After Effects. It actually scared me a wee bit sometimes. But now, new man. The only problem that I had with this part of the poem was when I tried to get my brother-in-law to voice over the poem, because he could not say stropped. It was strooped, stroopy, any type of strooping that you can think of, he said it.
Those overlooked regarded, stooped big fortune swoops, make it stroop.
He even stormed away maybe for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I thought that was it. I thought this is him away. He couldn't say it at all. It was hilarious. Tearing the crest. Again, not one clue did I have what this meant. So back again to Mr. Genius English Lit graduate with his poetry analysis. This crest actually meant about the helmet of the firefighters that helped in the 9/11. So this is why I've illustrated it up, the nice wee picture of the firefighter with the American flag in the background, and also the picture of the Twin Towers. I actually tried to use actual different blood effects, but from different people they said it was just too graphic. It was just didn't suit my style, just didn't look right. So what I did do was I put a red background down, did the matte, alpha matte down, so it would only show in the circle. This was then, it was a red square added on to a wave warp, which made it look like it was blood dripping down the screen. This was, I actually rendered out the whole video, which took maybe a couple of hours. And then after doing my voiceover, this was then I realised it was going too fast. I had to slow the whole thing down. Maybe I think I added on an extra maybe 3 seconds on it. But these are the things you have to do. The smoke that I had created for my second last scene, at the very start wasn't thick at all. It was like a cloud nearly. It was just nothing like it. I didn't really understand it. But then after again looking into it a bit further, looking at images from 9/11, because I really got into it. I really started feeling about what it would be like, what it would look like back in that. I know I was doing the vectored illustration, which is nothing like what it would be like, but I still obviously need to do my research into what it was like in person, so I could use my imagination and obviously vector it out and make it look as real, make it still touching for people. It's obviously so like this can still show a bit of emotion in the video, which is obviously get a bit of sadness probably from the video, which I feel I achieved this. I thickened up the clouds to make it look more like ash. That's when again I added in the ash effect as well over the top, just to add those finishing touches to take it really to the next level.